Thank you very much. If the commission would like, and I have to find him now, where's my... Let's see. Wait. There's Mr. McTighe. Mr. McTighe, if you would so like, you can go ahead and start your presentation.
Certainly. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Richter, I didn't hear your staff recommendation, but my understanding was that it was violation with good cause. Is that correct?
Yes, my recommendation is to find a violation, but for good cause, not impose a fine or refer the matter for further prosecution.
Okay, so on behalf of Mr. Hatcher, we are fine with that, and I don't have anything further unless there are questions.
Okay. Okay. That being the case, then if the commission. Oh, there we go. There is Mr. Bry, who is here on behalf of Mr. Antani and his campaign committee. Mr. Bry, if the, would you like to hear from the commission, or the commission, if you would like to hear from Mr. Bry, he is present.
We can't hear him.
Oh, no, that's, yeah, I muted that.
Can you hear me now?
Did you? Yes.
Yeah, you should be okay now. I partially agree with opposing counsel. I agree that the statute at issues are per se statutes as to the campaign committee, and that a finding of violation in good cause would be appropriate as to the campaign committee. I would, however, note that the two statutes at issue, Revised Code 3517.10A and Revised Code 3517.13B, do not apply to individuals. They only apply to campaign committees, among other reporting entities in the 10A statute, and they only apply to campaign committees in the 13B statute. And both of those are per se statutes. There is a statute that was not cited in the complaint that applies to individuals for knowing violations, but there is no allegation of a knowing violation, and there's no citation of any statutes other than alleged to be violated, other than the two indicated. It's not inappropriate for a complainant to include the candidate in a complaint against the campaign committee, because under some circumstances, if there is a fine, even without a violation, the candidate could be held responsible for paying all or part of that fine. But it would be contrary to the law to have a fining against an individual for statutes that can only be violated by a campaign committee. And therefore, we would ask the commission to accept the staff recommendation as to the campaign committee, find a violation and for good cause, not to impose fine or criminal referral, but not to find a violation against Niraj and Antani individually.
Any questions from the commissioners? Mr. McTeague, response?
Yes, this is Don McTighe. I will defer to the commission's view on that argument.
Mr. Richter?
I understand, as Mr. Bride pointed out, the statute in question. It does, every campaign committee is responsible, and there is a particular section 13E or F, I can't remember which one it is, that specifically identifies anyone or any person. So certainly, the commission can set my recommendation to make finding against this campaign committee. Oh, and the treasurer, who are mutually responsible. I'll be glad to answer any other questions if anybody else has any questions. Otherwise, I think we can proceed.
So your recommendation stays the same?
Yeah, and still to find a violation for good cause not imposed fine, but it would give.
Thank you.
Motion. We have a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the recommendation of the executive director.
I'll second the motion.
Motion has been moved, seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. And raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
That motion passes 6-0.
Call
Next,
the next case.
next case, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, is 2021D dash. Why don't you leave it down there? We'll eventually get to Mr. Brown. 2021D-027. Mr. McKay is again the counsel for the plaintiff, McFarland. Mr. Hartman is the counsel for the respondent, Mr. Gary. The essential complaint is that there were materials circulated in the most recent campaign in general election that were in violation of the disclaimer statute by not including the proper disclaimer. We have complaints, responses, we have additional responses that have all been circulated to all of you. You've seen those. If the commission would hear further from counsel, I guess counsel complaint would go first, and we would hear from Mr. Hart.
Yes, Mr. Richter, I think you called my name. There was a lot of feedback, so.
Yeah, that's what, we've got various computers here and where we are in the Rife Center, and then we're bouncing back and forth. But please go ahead, Mr. Tighe.
Yeah, well, again, I'm Don McTighe on behalf of the complainant Gwen McFarland. My understanding from email communication yesterday with Mr. Richter is that your recommendation on this case is to find a violation on count 1, which is the lack of a disclaimer, but good cause not to impose a fine or refer for prosecution. And that your recommendation with regard to count 2 is to find no violation.
That is correct. I'll interject just to say that is correct. That's my recommendation.
In the interest of expediting consideration of the case, the complainant, will accept that recommendation, and I'll be happy to answer questions if the commission members have any, or I'll, do a response after we hear from the respondents' counsel. Thank you.
Mr. Hartman, I guess go ahead.
No problem. Thank you. Kurt Hartman on behalf of the respondents. I want to address the recommendation with respect to the first count, which is the lack of disclaimer brought under 3517.20B. I would echo the arguments that Mr. Bry just made with respect to that in terms of that statute by its explicit language only applies to an entity and not to a person. And therefore, with respect to that, Mr. Gary must be dismissed as well. I would point out the other count 2, which is a alleged violation of Division H, actually says no candidate or entity shall. So the statute very clearly distinguishes when a candidate is being held liable versus the entity. Count 1, that only applies to the entity. So I would ask for the dismissal outright of Mr. Gary on that. In terms of the recommendation, I'm a little shocked that the recommendation is trying to adjudicate factual matters based solely on the papers. And if we're going with the papers themselves, I think a dismissal is in order. As this commission's rules, hopefully you respect them, but as the rules require, complaints are supposed to be based upon personal knowledge. And there's repeated statements by Miss McFarland, which she would clearly lack a basis of personal knowledge. She declares in her complaint and in her affidavit, it's based on, quote, my personal knowledge as defined by the commission, close quote. Firstly, how does she even know what it means to be as defined by this commission? I don't even know how this commission defines personal knowledge. That is a pure legal matter. And it cannot be based on hearsay. It cannot be based on secondhand information. And she does a lot of that in the complaint, especially in the second affidavit. But with respect to the disclaimer, I would point to the commission paragraph 3 of her second affidavit. Ms. McFarland says that the committee and Mr. Gary, but again, it's only applying to the committee by the statute's explicit language, quote unquote, apparently produced, close quote. Using that term apparently demonstrates she has a lack of personal knowledge. She's guessing. But regardless of that, she basically says apparently produced at least 2 versions, and she identifies 2 distinct versions. The version attached to the complaint on a darker blue piece of paper, and 2, the version attached to Mr. Gary's response on a lighter blue paper. And she's very clear that this complaint only is the subject of the complaint is the former. That is the dark blue paper. And the undisputed evidence before this commission is that the Gary campaign did not produce that. You have unrefuted absolute testimony by Mr. Gary that his campaign committee did not produce a slate card on that dark blue paper. He acknowledged that, yes, we did produce a slate card, a Democrat slate card, not a Democratic Party slate card, a Democrat slate card on light blue paper that contained a disclaimer. And so for this commission, for the recommendation to even come based upon that absolute unequivocal statement is shocking. It denies due process. It denies the right to confront your accusers. It denies the right to cross-examination. I mean, cross-examination has been defined as the greatest invention to ascertain the truth. But it sounds like your executive director is saying, don't worry about the truth. Let's just get this thing over and done with. The evidence is the campaign committee did not produce the flyer that is the subject of this complaint. End of inquiry. Case should be dismissed. Going on in terms of Ms. McFarland's statements, again, lacking personal knowledge. And we're going to, if you either you require personal knowledge or you don't. Paragraph 5, she says, I am in possession of 153 slate cards identifiable to the version that is the subject of this complaint, the dark blue ones, not the light blue ones, the latter which we concededly produced. But then she declares poll workers, volunteers for the Hamilton County Board of Elections, and voters observed agents of the respondent Gary's campaign. That's hearsay through and through. She doesn't have any affidavits from any poll workers, volunteers for the Board of Elections or voters, let alone how do they know whoever was handing out whatever were agents of a campaign. Speculation and hearsay, not personal knowledge. So I think with respect to the first count in terms of the lack of disclaimer, I would just simply say the evidence is clear that the campaign committee, while it did produce a slate card, produced one on a light blue paper, all of which contained a disclaimer. You even have before you in that affidavit from Mr. Gary, the order that went into the printer that said light blue paper. In terms of the second count, I would agree with the recommendation. I would simply, to preserve the record on that, I think it's mandated by court decisions, Supreme Court case in Alvarez and the McIntyre decision against this commission, as well as the Susan B. Anthony list case in the Sixth Circuit and the Magda decision by the 10th District. And so the only other thing I would say, I think it's trying to claim a monopoly on blue paper, trying to claim a monopoly on the word democratic. But if there's any questions on either things, I'll be open to questions.
Any questions from the commissioners?
So I have a question. Understanding, right, the differentiation between whether it's light blue or it's dark blue, and whether the specific listing was on the nose correct. What about the tweet where it seems pretty clear that Mr. Gary acknowledges his campaign had distributed the slate cards, some of which did not have disclaimer at the bottom?
The tweet does not address disclaimers or not disclaimers. The subject of the tweet, both from this news reporter, I'm looking at Exhibit E to Ms. McFarland's second affidavit. You tell me where in those tweets are we talking about disclaimers or no disclaimers? The whole gist of that tweet from the reporter and the response was the existence of a second slate card out there. No question was made, well, does it yours have a disclaimer, not have a disclaimer? So it was addressing what the subject in the context was a slate card. And like I said, we've not denied that. We've put out a slate card. And I would point out, I think also, if you look at the tweet, I mean, if you want to get into hyper-technical, like you have to minutely focus on every and any potential issue when you're tweeting. I mean, I know a lot of people don't, but even the picture of the slate card there does not have any indication of disclaimer or not disclaimer. It's truncated completely. And that's because the issue was a slate card, not a disclaimer. And besides that, you have the unequivocal statement, an affidavit from Mr. Gary that we did not produce the dark blue slate card, which is unrefuted.
Mr. McTighe, can you go ahead and please discuss the light colored, the dark blue paper versus the light blue paper issue?
Certainly. I think I'm going to stay on the subject here of the exhibits that the Twitter, we'll call the Twitter response. But I think it's important to look at 3 exhibits, not just Exhibit E. So it's exhibits C, D, and E, which is the Twitter string. Okay. So Exhibit C, which is a Twitter message by the reporter at 2:35 p.m. on Election Day, November 2nd, in which he says that Election Day shenanigans with a false Democratic slate being distributed with non-endorsed Dems mixed in with endorsed Dems isn't the first time, won't be the last time. But really what's important too is the picture below that he included in the tweet, which is the dark blue slate card. Okay, it's a full picture of the dark blue slate card. Then you go to another tweet a few minutes later at 2:43 p.m. by the same reporter, in which he provides the side-by-side comparison of the 2 slate cards, the dark blue one and the county party's slate card. And then you go to the 3rd exhibit, E, which is again a tweet by the reporter and the response at 3:03 p.m. by Mr. McGarry, in which he says, on behalf of my campaign, I would like to apologize. Our marketing director released this unapproved and against the wishes of our campaign. We have since stopped hanging it out and sincerely apologize for any confusion. we did not mean to contribute to any voter misinformation. That is specifically in response, not just to the reporter's tweet, but to the pictures included in the reporter's tweet. He says, again, the candidate says, our marketing director released this unapproved. So that, would seem to indicate that it was released by the campaign or produced by the campaign. So in addition, we have comments made by Mr. Gary at his impromptu press conference at the Board of Elections on Election Day, which are referenced in, let me get the exact paragraph here. I think it's in the original complaint, paragraph 17. I'm sorry, not paragraph 17. Paragraph 17 is a reference to a newspaper article. Bear with me one second. It's actually paragraph 15 of the second complaint, or the supplement to the complaint. It says, during an Election Day press conference that respondent Gary gave at the Hamilton County Board of Elections to discuss the fake slate card, a link to the video of which was included in paragraph 17 of the original complaint. He stated that there were a number of, what do you call it, prototypes that were put out. So he was referring to the slate card. So, it's not clear exactly what he's talking about there in terms of dark blue or light blue, but he is saying at a press conference that the campaign put out a number of prototypes. So I think that there is more than enough here to establish a violation in terms of the personal knowledge argument that was raised. Mr. Hardman correctly notes that the opening paragraph of the complaint says personal knowledge as interpreted by the commission. That is a phrase which I began adding to elections commission cases maybe about 15, 20 years ago, after repeatedly being overruled by the commission when I would raise objections about personal knowledge. The commission's practice has been to say that if people have personally reviewed materials such as newspaper articles or other materials or videos, that is sufficient for personal knowledge to invoke the commission's jurisdiction. That's the reason that language is in the complaint. And I believe under the commission's precedent, this is more than sufficient to establish personal knowledge. The campaign, we have a light blue and a dark blue. And we believe that the evidence indicates that the evidence that I just reviewed in terms of the Twitter feed, if you will, or the Twitter string, that indicates that the campaign was responsible for that dark blue version. Clearly, as the final point I would want to make on that is that, not having a disclaimer on there, is, well, let me say it a different way. If there had been a disclaimer on there, that would have gone, I think, a long way in terms of alleviating the voter confusion that Mr. Gary is apologizing for with regard to his campaign slate card. If voters could have seen that what was being handed out, which appeared to be something that it wasn't, but if it said paid for by Gary for Cincinnati, they would have at least had that additional information. We believe that there is sufficient evidence here to find a violation. And as I said, we are fine, a disclaimer violation, where we are fine with the recommendation of good cause.
Mr. Chairman, if I can be heard on a few of those points.
Well, let's see, are there commission members have any other questions for Mr. McTighe?
Yeah, Mr. McTighe, this is Commissioner Kreitz. I've got a question. You heard the argument that was made by Mr. Hartman with respect to count 2, that essentially the Alvarez decision and the Susan B. Anthony case and the litany that follows that are dispositive of count 2. Do you agree or disagree with that? And if so, why or why not?
Yes, yes, I heard the argument. No, be clear about that. I disagree. I think that those cases provide certainly some argument, that in support of what's being argued by Mr. Hartman. However, those cases were not specifically about this statute, which is about, I'm sorry, got to turn off my cell phone, which were not about essentially a false and misleading disclaimer, or not, false and misleading disclaimer in terms of who put out a piece of literature. I think that a court may reach a different conclusion with regard to that question. Again, this is about a false or fraudulent disclaimer. So I think that a court might very well conclude that that having the disclaimer serves an important governmental purpose in terms of being able to, as the point I made a minute ago, so that the public is fairly informed or correctly informed as to the source of materials. There's an informational right or informational interest that the government has. The cases cited by Mr. Hardman did not deal with that particular angle or, position regarding the state's interest. And the Ohio statute, the bottom line is that the Ohio statute actually has, that we're talking about, has not been struck down by the courts. The commission, as an executive branch agency, doesn't have the power to strike down statutes as unconstitutional, except where it is absolutely clear from precedent that the statute would be unconstitutional. And as I've just argued, I don't think that is clear at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hartman, could you respond to that, please, sir?
In terms of count 2, yes. Firstly, there is no evidence that anybody was actually deceived or misled. But in terms of the court cases, McIntyre versus the Ohio Election Commission was a disclaimer case, in which, despite the ruling of the commission, despite the ruling of the Ohio Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court said, anonymous speech even was protected under the First Amendment. And I think when you look at the Alvarez, Susan B. Anthony, Magda, and McIntyre decisions, what this commission has to undertake and appreciate is this has to provide enough breathing room for the First Amendment. And when you start getting into this nuance of misleading, what's the exact terminology in the statute here? False, fictitious, or fraudulent name or address in the making or issuing of a publication. There's no indication there was a false, fictitious, or fraudulent name in the making of this slate card. The slate card we acknowledge doing, the light blue one, it simply said a Democrat slate card. It had no indication that it was done by the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party does not have a monopoly on the word Democrat or Democratic. The Democratic Party does not have a monopoly on the use of blue paper, be it light blue or dark blue paper. They've not claimed any trademark violations. So I think under the criteria of the statute, a false, fictitious, or fraudulent name or address, none of that occurred. And so even if you apply the statute as written, I don't think there's any indication of a violation, but I think especially in light of those court cases, and that any doubt has to be construed in favor of the First Amendment and the full and robust exercise of First Amendment rights. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does. Thank you, sir.
I do want to address a few.
I have one for.
Go ahead. Please.
I have one for Mr. Hartman. Mr. Hartman, on Mr. Gary's second affidavit, which is dated 4th April 2020 at 8, it speaks to the slate card being printed. Who is the printer?
I'm not sure on that. I think it's immaterial.
Do you? I'm asking a question. I don't think it is. So let me ask you this.
Well,
do you have a receipt for that?
Well, I want
Do
to
you have a receipt for that?
please.
Does Gary have a receipt for this?
I'm sure he does it. Should be on his campaign finance report.
Should be, okay.
I want to say, I think it was a place, a Staples, a Kinko's, one of those type of places. I'm not sure specifically, but I think it was that type of place.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But it's interesting. I would know if I can kind of address what Mr. McTighe raised in terms of count one. Two things I would point out in terms of this tweet and what was the response of the tweet. Mr. Gary does directly address that in paragraph 7 of his supplemental affidavit, where he said we were focused upon and responding to the issue of the production of a Democratic slate card, which we concededly did produce, but we did not produce a Democrat Party slate card or a slate card on dark blue paper. And we did not note the nuance of whether any other particular picture was or was not the slate card actually produced by the campaign. And that's because at this time on election day, the hullabaloo being pushed by Miss McFarland and elements of the Democratic Party were, oh, there's a second slate card, or there's slate cards out there that aren't the Democratic Party. That's what the news was. And so therefore you're addressing it. And yeah, we did it. But we didn't do that one. That is the complaint, the slate card that is the subject of this complaint, as in Miss McFarland's own words. And then the other thing I would just simply note,
If you want to do a good hearing, we can do so.
is that a question or?
No.
The other thing I would point out, it was interesting the language Mr. McTighe used in quoting from paragraph 15 of Ms. McFarland's second affidavit, where it quotes, not a full context, but quotes somewhat like Mr. Gary in the newspaper that quote, there were a number of, what you call it, prototypes out there. Mr. McTighe's own words were, quote, "It's not clear what he's talking about," close quote. That's what he said to this commission about 5 minutes ago. And based on something that his own admission is not clear, he wants this commission to find a violation, notwithstanding the unequivocal declarations by Mr. Gary that we did not produce a slate card on that dark blue paper. That would be shocking, and you're doing it solely on paper. For the attorneys out there, if this was a summary judgment, you'd be reversed instantaneously on a summary judgment if you granted it based on the evidence in this record. That's all I will point for now.
Okay, thank you very much for those arguments. Are there any more questions from commissioners? Any other comments from Mr. Richter?
I'm comfortable with my recommendation as it stands, as it relates to both count 1 and count 2. I appreciate the arguments that everybody's placed forward. Part of me is influenced by the comments that Mr. Gary included throughout all these materials, where he talks about an unauthorized piece issued by the campaign committee. Because if you want to interpret, then you would be interpreting that as Neither one of those is the responsibility of the campaign committee, even though the one has a disclaimer on it, it says it's the campaign committee, as he says, an unauthorized piece. And so that's probably the most persuasive element in my thinking as it relates to my recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Richter, I apologize, but maybe it was just me, but there was so much feedback, I couldn't understand what you were saying. Would you care just summarizing that again, please, sir?
Sure. Hopefully this is going to go through a little more clearly. When you look at the comments that Mr. Gary included, or were included in all of these materials here, he talks about a piece being unauthorized, and that it was circulated by his marketing director. It was an unauthorized. Well, if you look at the two pieces, one does have a disclaimer, and the other one does have a disclaimer that presumably is an authorized piece from his campaign committee. And so if you're going to say that neither piece is the responsibility of the campaign committee, is that thing, wasn't it? Is it? Oh, it is. And I apologize for all this, but you can't have two different pieces, one authorized and one unauthorized, when he talks about an unauthorized piece. And so it has to me at least, it has to be the other one. That's the primary basis for my recommendation. Hopefully that helps.
So just to clarify, Phil, this is Commissioner Knight. Your recommendation stays the same?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? At this time, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to move Mr. Richter's recommendation.
Is there a second to the motion made by? Okay, hearing no second.
Okay.
I guess the next.
What else does the commission want to do?
Well, the commission does have the option of moving this to a full hearing.
I move that we set this matter down for full hearing.
Is there a second to set this? The motion is that we are moving to set this particular matter to a full hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
If I make a clarification, is that on counts 1 and 2 or count 1 only?
Both counts 1 and count 2.
Okay.
Any further discussion on that particular motion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye and raising your right hand, please.
Aye.
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 That motion appears. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm stepping on your toes. I apologize. Yeah.
Motion is carried.
Is there any negative bet?
I'm negative.
Oh, Mr. Lyle. That motion passes 6-0.
No, I voted.
6-1.
I voted.
6-1. I apologize.
And just for the sake of the parties, Mr. Richter, what will be the next steps in contacting the parties?
We'll contact parties about setting a hearing for this matter sometime soon.
I do intend to conduct discovery on this. I will ensure I have ample opportunity to conduct discovery before the full hearing.
Be in touch with me as to how you wish to do it, or with Mr. McTighe and or his office, and proceed.
Very good.
Thanks, gents.
The next matter is Wallace v. Adams, 2022 G003. The complainant asserts essentially two things. One is that there was an advertisement circulated with an improper disclaimer. Bear with me here. And the other is that there was an expenditure that was not properly reflected or identified in a campaign finance report. A response was received yesterday. I circulated it to all the members, in which the respondent said there was no violation as it relates to the disclaimer, because an updated designation of treasurer was submitted last October, in which the name of his committee was changed to John Adams for Secretary of State, and that was not properly reflected on the Secretary's website. But then he did admit that there was an expenditure that was not initially included in a campaign finance report. Subsequently, the report was updated and amended that reflected that expenditure. My recommendation on this case then is to find that there's no violation on the first allegation as it relates to the disclaimer, but to find a violation and impose a fine of $50 as it relates to the improper, or the failure to include a proper expenditure at the time. Mr. Adams is present as the complainant. Mr. Brown is here for the commission in the room and for the respondent. And so if the commission would like to hear from Mr. Adams, we can go forward and hear from Mr. Adams.
Are there any questions for me? I do not dispute what Mr. Richter has said.
Doesn't appear that.
Okay, hearing no questions, we'll now hear from Mr. Brown.
Committee on no objection.
Okay. Any questions for Council Brown? Seeing none. Is there a motion?
I'll move the recommendation of the executive director.
I'll second it.
If no further discussion. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All right, if not, all in favor, signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Same sign for any nays. The motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much. That is all.
Okay, all right.
Understatement there. Thank you, Mr. Adams, for your presence. Mr. Brown as well.
Thank you.
See here. Okay. Yeah, we'll go to, for the commission members, we'll go to the group recommendations. But we have a listing of people who are present. And if I see them still present, just kind of the way that either Mr. Hughes or I took down names as we came in. So we apologize for anybody who may be sitting a little bit longer. But the first case that I'm going to call forward before the commission is case number 2022R-013. It is under the good cause group recommendation. 3 and 4, Mr. Andrew McDonald. Look at.
Okay.
Bear with me as I work through this, but not only for Mr. McDonald, but for our newest members here. I'm going to walk through the this particular referral is from the Lorain County Board of Elections. It involves the candidate of Andrew McDonald, excuse me, his treasurer Jillian McDonald, and the committee elect McDonald, and it's for late filing of the 2021 Post General Report that was due on 12/10, reflects a filing date of 12/12. The candidate did submit a response. I've synopsized that for you members in my individual consideration worksheet. And my recommendation on this particular case is to find a violation, but for good cause, not impose a fine or refer the matter for prosecution. for everyone out there that's listening and for the commission members. I have said this to other folks about a year and a half ago. Commission members asked me to come prepared to not just always accept good cause or be prepared to make good cause recommendations on cases, depending on how late a filing was made and a variety of other circumstances and the response submitted, whether a response is submitted. And so as it relates to this particular case, with the due date being of December 10th for the post general report and the report being filed on the 12th, within about a week of the, actually less than a week in this particular case, my recommendation to find a violation but for good cause is primarily based on that and the response that was submitted. And so you'll hear me probably repeat some of that throughout as we get to other cases in which I'm recommending the imposition of a fine. I'll explain those as well. If any of the commission members have additional questions, particularly the newest ones, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, we can hear from Mr. McDonald if the commission wants to hear from him further.
Or Mr. McDonald, if you'd just like to make a statement.
Sure.
I swear the witness, please.
Oh, Mr. McDonald, do you swear or affirm that what you were about to say to the commission is the truth and all? Yeah, easy for me to say, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was my first time running for office. I did lose track of the filing date. I was notified, and instead of trying to rush the report, I did complete it over the weekend where I could take some time and make sure everything was accurate. Once again, apologies for it being tardy, but I wanted to be 100% correct in my responses and not rush anything. And that's not an excuse, but that's the reality of why I was late.
Any questions from the commissioners? Ken? Seeing none. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the executive director?
So moved.
Second that.
Moved by Ms. Kaufman, seconded by Mr. Lyle. All in favor, signify by saying aye or raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Appears to be unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you.
The next item for the commission's consideration is case number 2021R-459. So, David Atkins, the acting for counsel, Spain was also referred, this was referred for late filing the designation of treasurer. The explanation that was submitted to everybody was circulated. I synopsized it, circulated. Mr. Atkins is present. Again, my recommendation on this case is to find that there is a violation, but for good cause, not impose a fine or refer the matter for the prosecution. The report is within a week of when it should have. Mr. Atkins, you are, if you would like to make a statement, you'll be sworn, but yeah, you were muted, but now you're not.
No, I don't need to make a statement. I agree with the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commissioners first? Seeing no questions, do we have a motion from the commissioners to accept the recommendation of the executive director on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we follow the recommendation of the executive director.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was Mr. Knight, correct?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Seeing no further discussion on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye or raising your right hand.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
The motion passes 7-0.
Next matter.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good day.
Thank you.
The next matter to come before the commission is also in the good cause listing, case number 2021R-460. 445. Spotlight for everyone. The Ed Enderly Committee was referred for a late filing of the 2021 posted general election report. It was due on December 10th, filed on the 13th. I synopsized and circulated the nature of his response. Mr. Enderly is present. If the commission would like to hear from him further, but again, my recommendation is to find there was a violation of statute for the late filing, but for good cause not impose a fine or refer the matter for the prosecution. Mr. Enderly, would you like to make an additional statement to the commission? So you need to be sworn.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind adding a little bit to it.
If you would, then, do you swear or affirm that the statement you are about to make to the commission is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please proceed.
The only thing I wanted to add is I've been in public serving for 24 years, 8 elections, and this one just got away from me. That's all. Just life happened. So thank you for understanding. No.
Any questions from the other commissioners?
Any questions for me at all?
Yes, that's what I was asking. Yep. Not from you, for you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your statement.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions from the commissioners, is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the executive director?
So moved.
Second.
And Ms. Kaufman seconded the motion.
Seeing that there's a motion that's been seconded, this is no motion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. The next item for the commission to consider is case number 2021R-442. The committee to elect Jeff Ratliff. Down here. Oops. Yeah, I'll get that. There it goes. This is a referral for the from the Marion County Board of Elections. Originally, it was for a failure to file the requested addendum to the semi-annual report. The report was filed on March 17th. A response was submitted. I synopsized it and sent it along. My recommendation on this particular case is to find a violation, impose a fine of $50. Again, as I said earlier, as the commission has asked me to be a little bit more attentive to matters that are pending before the commission. I appreciate the response. As it relates to this particular case, though, considering the due date was reflected as being in November and the report was not filed until March, my recommendation is to find a fine of $50 and find a violation. Commission could certainly hear from Mr. Ratliff, who is the candidate. His wife, Kelly Ratliff, I think is with him. She's the deputy treasurer for the committee. If the commission would like to hear from them further, if they would like to make a statement, we can certainly swear them in, or one or the other or both, to make a statement.
I can be sworn in to make a statement.
Okay, Mr. Ratliff, do you swear or affirm that what you're about to tell the commission is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Just so everybody kind of understands what happened, Fahey Bank started charging the campaign a monthly fee. It wasn't picked up until the campaign had no activity. And so once we had that, the reflection, when we closed the campaign, I loaned the campaign, so there was a discrepancy of the amount of money that would be returned. There should have been $189 more in it than what was in it. So we just reflected that by putting the number. So each specific charge would not have been a specific violation of revised code 3517.14 D4 requiring it, but the accumulation of them on the report that it was in is over the $25 threshold. So what ended up happening is they wanted, in order to appropriately reflect it, they wanted us to do new reports. We had to do 7 new reports for all of them. That's why it took a long time. And as far as the campaign for a local campaign, it was a substantial amount of activity that our campaign did, and the amount that we spent on a local campaign, we were probably $80,000 or so. So it was a high amount and a lot to account for. So that would be the reason for the delay. I understand, I'm not arguing for no violation because it would be a technical violation, but each one accumulating. But I do think the letter we submitted, my affidavit and statement, could provide evidence of good cause not to impose a fine.
Before, if the commission members have any questions, you can go ahead. Before the commission moves any further, I would just say, I'm making a recommendation to the commission. Obviously, if the commission wants to go in a different direction, make a different finding, certainly, feel free to do so. Accept my recommendation, make a change, go to good cause or something else. That's more than fine by me.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question.
Please proceed and ask that question.
Thank you very much. My question to the witness, did the bank not charge you any fees all along and just started charging you fees?
That's correct. It was like inactivity. And then when the account fell below a certain amount, they started charging, which I wasn't getting at the beginning. So then when there's no activity, we weren't even checking the bank statements. And it didn't happen until we actually moved to close it, that the numbers were off, and then we picked up. So I could have gotten an actual statement from Fahey that would have said, here's the bill of all the fees we charge. But the Board of Elections says, well, each one of your reports is technically wrong by you're off. So then they wanted us to redo all of the reports. So then we redid all of the reports. Then each specific one might have had another discrepancy in it. So we would have to correct it. So that's what took the time, just to redo all of that, because it was a big undertaking the first time we did it. And then to go back and make sure all the numbers matched and to reflect that fee that was being charged on us that kind of came at the last minute. And so that's what occurred.
Thank you. I'll wait and see if there are any other questions before making a motion.
No question.
Any other questions? Commissioner Tavares?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we find a violation, but for good cause.
Second.
Wait a minute. For good cause, not impose a fine. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Correct. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I didn't say
I don't
the
know if
rest.
the audio cut off or what happened.
Thank you very much for continuing. That's correct. And not impose a fine. Thank you. And not for further prosecution.
Very good.
Okay, is there a second to that motion now that's been restated?
Second.
Seconded that.
Okay. Any other discussion or comments on that matter? Okay, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye or raising your right hand.
Aye.
Motion, any nays? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next matter that I'm bringing forward to the commission is case number 2022R-002. Deandra Nickerson. Deandra Nickerson, City Council. This is for a failure to file, and originally it was for failure to file the 21 post-temporal report. The report was filed on March 16th. The candidate submitted a response, which I synopsized along. My recommendation is to find a violation and impose a fine of $50. If the commission would like to hear from Ms. Nickerson, she is present. We can do so.
Thank you. I have nothing to say. I agree with what you're saying. Thank you.
Okay. Does the commissioners have any question of Ms. Nickerson? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we follow the recommendation of the executive director.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seeing no further discussion on this motion, all in favor signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? The motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, the next case that I want to bring forward before the commission is case number 2022R-011. The committee's name, Jack Sarah for 7th committee. Candidate Jack Sarah, John Farrell, John Farrell present. Today, my
Yes, I.
case is to find a violation, but for good cause not imposed fine. If the commission or Mr. Farrell would like to make an additional statement, he can be sworn, or if the commission wants to have any questions of him. But you've heard my recommendation.
Yeah.
It must be it. Yes. Somehow yours went to the second page.
Okay. Mr. Farrell, would you like to make a statement?
I'd just like to say, as my letter stated,
We need to swear the witness.
Well, to be sworn, and you're welcome to make the statement. Mr. Farrell, do you swear or affirm that what you were about to say to the commission is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes, I do.
Please go. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you to the commission. I'm the treasurer for Jack Sarah for 7th Ward. He had a $100 donation in 2021. That was the only activity. I mistakenly thought that it was just go on the annual report, but it was an election year for Mr. Sarah. So on that, the report was due on 12/10. I received notice that day that I hadn't filed it, and it was filed on that Monday, the December 13th.
Do the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Farrell? Seeing none, is there a motion? Seeing none, is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
No further discussion on the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye or raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? The motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farrell. The next case I'll bring before the commission is case number 2021R-458. The Huron City Schools Levy Committee, John Battisti. If I butchered your name, Mr. Battisti, I apologize. Treasurer for the committee. My recommendation on this case is to find that there's a violation, but for good cause, not impose a fine or for a matter of prosecution. The referral is for a late filing of the pre-general report that was expected to be filed on October 21st, but was filed on October 26th. And so it being within a week of when the report, I need to back off a second. I got ahead of myself. My recommendation at this point is to find a violation and impose a $100 fine. And that was because there was no response submitted to the commission. And so if the commission were to hear from Mr. Batiste, is it Battisti or Batiste? I apologize.
It's Batiste, and it's also Josh. I don't know if that's important.
Josh. Okay, I have a Josh here, but somehow we got John on our database, so we'll make that correction. Anyway, Mr. Batiste, if you would please be sworn. Do you swear or affirm that what you were about to say to the commission is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please make your statement to the commission And I may change my recommendation based on the nature of your.
Okay, I didn't send a written response to the notice just because I knew I filed late. I didn't have any dispute with the fact that I missed the deadline.
Do the commission members have any questions? If not, again, I think then because his response or his submission was within a week of the commission or of the due date, filing with the Board of Elections, I'll make a recommendation to the commission that they find a violation, but for good cause, not impose a fine or refer the matter for further prosecution.
So moved. I moved the recommendation of the executive director.
Second.
The revised recommendation as set forth today, correct?
I'm sorry?
The revised
Yes,
recommendation.
the revised recommendation of the executive director as stated.
Second.
Thank you.
Huh? Was that Ms. Hagan? Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
We can't hear you, Otto.
Oh, really? Okay, try that again. You should be.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
All in favor?
Aye.
Signify.
I'm getting ahead of you.
Got somewhere to go?
I guess.
Any nays? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Batista.
Thank you.
Go take care of your cat.
Yeah.
Well,
He walked in behind you if you hadn't
Multiple
noticed.
times.
yeah, he's all over the place.
Yeah. Very cute.
All right, thank you.
The next, oh my God. Okay, he's up here. The next matter I'm bringing before the commission is case number 2022R-008. Friends of Achilles Morales, candidate and treasurer. A referral for a late filing of the post-general election report. The report was due on December 10th. It was filed on December 20th. The candidate did submit a response, which I've synopsized and circulated to everybody. If the commission would like to hear further from the respondent, we can certainly have him sworn to make an additional statement to the commission, or if you'd like to do so, Mr. Morales, you could be sworn to make a statement. And you are now you're not muted. Okay.
No, I have nothing else to add other than what I submitted. So.
All right, do the commissioners have any questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move we follow the recommendation of the executive director.
Second.
Okay.
There's been a motion and it has been properly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
The next matter to come before the commission. Is case number 2022R-473.
Can you say that again, Mr. Executive Director? You were very garbled.
I will gladly say that. I can even try and say it slower so that it doesn't get garbled, which is a challenge for me. Jack Subel, who was referred for failing to file, but eventually a late filing of a designation of treasurer that was filed on November 29th. That's on your continued list because Mr. Subel, we did not have an indication that there was good service on you for our certified mail service. but if you would be willing and make a statement to the commission as it relates to the circumstances of your case, I can make a recommendation to the commission on your case. So, Ms. Suber, if you would, do you swear or affirm that what you're about to say to the commission is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please proceed.
I had one campaign expense for my yard signs, and I filed it under the wrong form. I was in contact with the county, the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections, who steered me to the right form, which I think is 30-B or something. I have a copy here. In any case, filled that out, sent it in late, as the counselors mentioned there. And I did not file a response. I quite frankly, I didn't realize that the committee had my new campaign report. And so I think that I filed everything correctly now. That's really all I have to say.
Are there any questions from commission members? Not necessarily hearing any. I will then update my recommendation to find that there is a violation of the statute based on the fact that it was the report, the designation was not submitted on time, but for good cause, not impose a fine or refer the matter for the prosecution.
I move that we follow the executive director's recommendation.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, the motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next matter that I will bring before the commission, Geringer for council president, Geringer candidate, Conchita Geringer, treasurer from Ross County. There we go. I'll spotlight Mr. Geringer for everybody. And again, if I am butchering your name, I'll offer a general apology for that being the case. Again, this was for a late filing of the Post General Report. It was due on December 10th, filed on December 14th. It was in your continued list because we did not have good service on Mr. Geringer. And so I'll ask Mr. Geringer if he would be willing to be sworn and make a statement to the commission. I could then update my recommendation.
Yeah.
Mr. Geringer, do you swear or affirm that what you're about to tell the commission is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
Yeah, the admission that it was late. My treasurer, Conchetta, was on medical leave due to an accident that she'd had, and I was responsible for the submission of that and missed the timeline. So then submitted it as soon as another candidate had brought to my attention that it had been due on the 10th. So as soon as it was brought to my attention, submitted on behalf of my own campaign.
Okay. Based on his statement and his explanation, I will now make my recommendation. I'm sorry.
Hold on. I have a question.
Yeah.
Did I hear correct that your treasurer was a close relative of yours?
Spouse.
That's close.
Okay. Well, okay. All right.
Okay. You're okay.
Thank you. Yes,
right.
That's my question.
Okay. I would then make my recommendation would be to find that there was a violation of the statute for the late filing, but for good cause, not impose a fine and refer the matter for further prosecution.
The executive director has revised his recommendation based on the testimony here today. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we follow the recommendation of the executive director.
Second.
Motion. There's been a motion and that's been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Hearing none, the motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
The next case that I will bring before the commission is case number 2021 R-472. Stafford Chenette for Maple Heights Council, Stafford Chenette candidate, Stafford Chenette junior treasurer. The referral was for a failure to file a complete and accurate statement. The report was filed timely, but there was a negative balance. The statement included was, while the initial reports did include negative balance, then the reports were filed in December 8th with accurate balances. No additional explanation offered. My recommendation to the commission is to find a violation and impose a fine of $100. If you look at your the ICW, you will see that there was a prior back in 2014, which is a little bit late. But consider the nature of the explanation. That's my recommendation. If Mr. Chenette would like to be further heard, I would encourage you to turn your camera on first off, and you're muted. I could swear you in, and you could make a further statement to the commission if you would be so inclined. Unless you're okay with the recommendation.
Yes.
You would like to be sworn? Okay.
To be honest with you, sir, I really had a hard time hearing you, but I'm ready to speak.
Okay. If you would swear or affirm that what you are about to say to the commission is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I can affirm, yes.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, and so and please, I apologize. I did not understand what you had said in regards to what am I being? Can you explain to me again? I'm sorry. I could not hear you, sir. I'm sorry.
That's okay. The referral from the Board of Elections was for failing to file a complete and accurate campaign finance report because you reflected a negative balance, which is an improper filing with the board.
Yeah.
You indicated in your response that an amended report was submitted that had accurate balances, but that's all your report said. And so if you'd like to go into any further detail as to what the circumstances were, that could be helpful to me and make a recommendation to the commission to assess your case.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I understand. So when I submitted my first report, or my post general report, I believe it is, I had a negative balance because I didn't include the money, my own funds that I used to make up for what I could not collect. So I only listed the donations that was given to my campaign, and I use a service called Act Blue. So I listed what I received from contributions to my campaign. The negative amount was the money that I had to donate to my campaign to make up for the expenditures. The audit, I believe at the Board of Elections, the gentleman who was handling my finance report he explained to me to list that on as a loan to yourself. So what I did, I made a correction and I listed as loan to myself, and then that balanced out my report. So that's where the error was. Please forgive me, I'm a little nervous, but forgive me if I'm not making sense of it. That's what happened. When I added when he explained to me that I can add a loan to myself, that's when I was able to correct my report and submitted it on December. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, these kinds of meetings can be a little bit challenging in terms of hearing, listening, and so forth. And so I'll offer a general apology for this, but we'll keep trying. Do any of the commission members have questions for Mr. Chenette? I will go then, based on what I just heard, I'll change my recommendation to find that there was a violation because it was not properly filed originally, but for good cause, not impose a fine or refer the matter for further prosecution. I'll be glad to answer any questions the commission has.
Okay. Any comments, or is there a motion on the executive director's revised recommendation?
I move that we follow the revised recommendation of the executive director.
Second.
Mr. Lyle seconded that ahead of you, Mr. or Ms. Tavares.
Oh, okay, good.
There's been a motion that's been properly seconded. And there's no further discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, the motion passes 7-0.
What? I'm so sorry. What was the decision?
The decision, and I'll try and speak slowly, is that we found a violation because the report was not correct when it was originally filed. But for good cause, we are not imposing a fine or referring the matter for further prosecution.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you all. Thank you.
The next case that I will bring to the commission's attention is case number 2022R-004, Terrell Anthony Farrow fourth. It was referred for a late filing of the post general election report. The report was due on December 10th, filed on December 13th. A response was submitted to the commission, which I synopsized to everyone. My recommendation is to find that there was a violation, but for good cause, not impose a fine or refer the matter for further prosecution. Mr. Farrow, if you would like to be heard further, I can have you sworn. You can make a statement of the commission.
No, I'll be fine. I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
He was in a good code right there, very well.
Is there a motion based on the executive director's original recommendation?
I move that we follow the executive director's recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Same to you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Or 471. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was about to make, there were two persons that I could not identify as relating to any cases. I'm calling Tracy, and I'm not even going to try the one because I know I would obliterate it, but Peters, who appears to be on here, Chris just informed me on case number 2021R-471, I believe. Get my recommendation sheet here. Okay. Friends of Nathaniel Martin from Cuyahoga County. The failure to file a complete and accurate statement, failure to file a couple of complete and accurate statements. There were multiple due dates. There are priors involved. Ms. Is it Udria Peters, I guess? You're muted. And if you would like to be sworn, I could swear you in. But in order to address the, whoops, hold on a second. You're muted, so you would need to unmute yourself.
Okay.
I can have you sworn. but you're not listed as one of the respondents to the case. Like if you were a deputy treasurer or something like that, we could certainly hear from you on behalf. But,
Yes, I am the deputy treasurer. All the paperwork
okay.
was,
If
yes.
you would please be sworn, so if you swear or affirm that what you are about to tell the commission is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay, if you would take that swear or that oath.
I swear.
Okay, thank you very much. A couple of things then. The last I knew, and I didn't check with the Board of Elections on this, was that the reports had not yet been filed, at least from when they referred this to us back in December. And so if you could comment on that as it relates to whether the reports have been filed in any other circumstances, because I didn't check with the board on this particular case, because I had it on our continued list because there was no card for service.
Okay. Yeah. Back on, I've been working diligently since November, the end of November now, to update these. It was my fault for not paying attention. You know, I just carried the numbers forward, and I've been working with Ms. Combs diligently. I sent all the information to your agency as well of all the updated forms. What I did, we had a lot of mailing costs, and I put those on the wrong form. It should have been on J as in-kind match. So that's why it came up as a negative. And it's my own stupidity. I thought I knew better, that, you know, knowing how to carry things forward or whatever, that I didn't realize there should not have been a negative balance. I should have read more carefully. This is all on me, my stupidity. Once we got the information, see, in East Cleveland too, there was a problem. I'm the clerk of council there as well. And I was helping a friend. And unfortunately, the mail doesn't get there like it should. So a lot of the things, the service and that wasn't coming in time. Councilman Nathaniel Martin, unfortunately too, in November, thank God, I knew enough. I talked to him every day, and I didn't talk to him on the one day. So I actually, like 6 hours later, had to call the police department. They had to break in. They found him unconscious. So he was really sick for 2 months. So I sort of picked up the gauntlet and tried to help get these things done for him. So I've been working with Ray. She explained to me, I went down and she told me that the postage and that should have been on Form J. And then that way I would be fine. You know, I showed her everything. We had all the backup. So I did correct everything and resubmit everything to her. And there was like another little thing that I needed to find an address, and then trying to go through stuff and trying to find an address for something else for Mr. Martin was a feat in itself. But so we went back and forth, and I had all the information with Ray. So we're pretty much on task, that everything was finally clarified with this information. But like, again, I take full responsibility. It was my own, you know, it was me. I thought that, oh, okay, this is good. But no, it wasn't. I should read more thoroughly when I was in a hurry to get this stuff in.
So the reports have all been completed and there had been submitted to the Board of Elections, and they're satisfied with what's been submitted?
Yeah, but they still haven't gone through everything yet down at the board. They're behind on stuff, so we haven't heard anything back. So I submitted the final stuff to Ray. So now we're just waiting to hear back.
When did you submit those reports?
Well, I'm looking at some was submitted on 11/2/22, or 1/2/22. I'm sorry, the final ones. But that was for a few other things. Hold on one second, sir. I am so sorry. I got these forms in front of me. Because I know as soon as we heard about it, and then trying to get an appointment and everything with Ray because of COVID and that, and you had to set up appointments. So I'm thinking the first week of January, everything was finally submitted back to her after going back and forth on the emails and stuff.
Okay.
That's wonderful that they were allowing, you know, we were trying to work back and forth on emails, sending the forms, and then should send back. And with COVID, you know, this time down there, I just go back for all of them.
You don't want to verify.
We could.
Mr. Chair, should we continue this matter until Phil's had an opportunity to verify the reports?
Yes, that would be my suggestion, as well as I was just discussing with the executive director.
Yeah, I was kind of heading toward making a recommendation on it, but I don't disagree with your moving toward continuing this. We can always bring this back at the next commission meeting, which is on April 21, and in the intervening period, make sure that the board is okay with what's submitted. Does that sound reasonable?
Okay.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to continue?
Yeah, or you can do it, Mr. Chair, if you want to. Just to declare it, the matter continues to the next meeting.
I declare the matter continued until the next meeting on the 21st.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
could I have a point of personal privilege here? And I'm not sure how this works, so you guys will have to guide me, but Mr. Martin, I believe this is the same Nathaniel Martin, Councilman Martin, was a former AFSCME member and also a steward, and I was the statewide president for AFSCME. And I know him, and I haven't talked to him in probably a decade, but I just wanted set on the record, for transparency. I certainly feel I can make a fair and impartial decision, but I need to be guided by you all, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. We'll just discuss that matter with you offline.
Okay, thank you.
As to what your next action will be.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next case.
All right. So,
Next person.
yeah, Ms. And help me out here. Is it Udrea Peters? Is that what it is?
It's Udrea Peters. It's like the J silent.
Okay. I had a feeling that was the case. Okay.
See, you
So
did a
this
great
matter,
job.
we'll bring this matter back on April 21st, which is the next commission meeting. I don't know how you came to get the link to attend this meeting, but whatever you did this time, you can just do the next time. My staff will get the matter set out there for you so that you'll be able to attend and have any additional comments. If you want in the interim, I will talk with the Board of Elections.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Hughes, Chris Hughes, I sent an email and requested because I had called him a couple weeks ago when Mr. Martin got the letter.
Okay.
And I said, so Chris was great, working with, telling me, step by step. And I knew I wanted to attend.
Sounds good. Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
All right, one last person who is before the commission. I'm not sure what Casey would be affiliated with. I see a person present by the name of Dustin Enzinger. I didn't see anything in our records. Mr. Enzinger, if you would identify which case you are here on, you're currently muted and your your camera is out. We could take up whatever it is that you want, or else we'll go on with the rest of the meeting. And if you're here just viewing, that's fine. I guess we keep going then, Mr. Chair.
Okay, at this time, we're going to take a recess until 12 noon Eastern time. He said he's with the media.
I'm with the media. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Enzinger.
We're taking a brief recess until 12 noon.
And then we'll go starting again. Then we'll start going through the group recommendations. I'm going through the groups only because you got so many.
Well,
you're going to ignore. Yeah. Oh, really? All right. Well, Mike, then, if you want to get us going back again.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, is everyone back yet? I see Kreitz, I see Kaufman, I see Hagan, I see Tavares. Are you back, Tavares?
Yes, he is.
Okay, and Knight, you are back.
There we go.
Okay, we will now proceed with the group considerations and staff recommendations. Grab your list and your pen. Be ready.
And if you have any questions, raise your hand. Just go ahead and chime in with a question. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. There's one particular case that I want to talk with everybody about.
Okay, thank you. The first category of cases is the good cause category, where they find a violation, but for good cause shown, not impose a fine, not impose a penalty, or refer for prosecution. That would be case number 2021-R444, 2021-R446, 2021-R447, 2021-R448, 2021-R451, skip. 2021-R476, 2022-R003, skip. Case number 2022-R010. And the last two have been handled already. Mr. Richter.
These matters.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Richter, but we're not able to hear you.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
not
okay.
able to hear the chair. And
Really? I mean, I've got.
no, you, Mr. Richter, we weren't able to hear you.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully you can hear me now. These referrals were either made for a failure to file or a late filing. Initially, reports were filed with the board. A response was submitted to the commission. Generally speaking, the submissions to the board of the reports was within a week of the due date. And so based on the fact that the report was filed fairly timely and a response submitted to the commission, my recommendation is to find that there's a violation, but for good cause, not impose a fine or refer the matter for further prosecution.
Do the commissioners have any other questions or comments at this time on these matters? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we follow the recommendation of the executive director.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
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 Motion passes 7-0. We will proceed to the next group of cases where the recommendation of the executive director is to fine a violation and impose a fine of $50. And that would be in case number 2021-R-449, 2021-R-457, case number 2021-R-464, case 2021-R-465, case 2021-R-475, skip. Case number 2022-R-007, skip. Case 2022-R-009. Mr. Richter, any comments?
No.
So we can't hear you at all.
I guess I'm not looking at the microphone. These in these cases, the reports were generally filed beyond a week of when the report was due. A response was submitted to the commission that gave a reasonable explanation. And so my recommendation is to find a violation and impose a fine of $50. I'm not sure what else I can do to speak more clearly or into the microphone.
I think sometimes you're not speaking right into the microphone.
This angle works perfectly. So whatever you're doing right now, that's perfect.
Okay. I won't move. I'll only move my lips. No, good. Bear with me. That's devices, I think, right? Oh, and Teams? Oh, I thought you said. Okay. Here.
I don't know what kind of budget we're working with, but there is a device called an OWL. And it may be late in the game now, but we actually invest in it in our ministry, and it's hugely helpful. But it catches everybody on screen that's present, gives an awesome display, and it does a really good job with the audio, picking up on the exact person that's talking in the room. So something to keep in the back of your mind. It's called the OWL.
Huh.
Just a device that is very, very helpful in circumstances like this.
I'm in all the times in the, well, you know, the one difference that I have here is, since I'm kind of sharing the view with Chair Beatty, normally I guess I would have earphones in with a microphone, and maybe that would be enough to make a difference. Wow, Chris is getting really technical with us right at the moment. He's attaching a microphone. Okay.
So Phil, let me get this straight. You're blaming it on Otto?
Yes, I'm blaming it on Chair Beatty. Totally. I don't want to take responsibility for myself.
Okay, now you're live on that mic.
Okay. Can you? I feel like we're in a Verizon commercial now. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Anyway, the response, the responses have been or the reports have been submitted. A response submitted, but the submissions were generally beyond a week. Oftentimes much more than that in terms of a late filing of a campaign finance report. And so my recommendation is to find a violation and impose a $50 fine. I'm glad to answer any other questions you may have.
Okay, is there a motion on the executive director's recommendation for this group?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Lyle is making a motion to accept my recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Was that Tavares? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
All opposed? None. The motion carries.
Before we move on to the next case, I'm going to go ahead and interject. I'm going to address the next three cases where we are consolidating cases with other matters, consolidating cases with other matters, finding a violation, imposing a fine of $50. In each of these cases, we not only had a case on today's agenda, but if you'll notice the subsequent numbers there in the three of the respective cases, they're all on the next commission meeting as well. And after looking at those cases and seeing when reports were filed and discussing the matter, and depending on the responses received and looking at the matter with the Board of Elections, I felt it was appropriate to consolidate these three cases, not with each other, but with the respective case that's with a related respondent, and to find a violation, impose a $50 fine. Responses were submitted in each case. The reports were late, but they were beyond a week as it relates to these. And so as it relates to these three cases, which we should take up individually, but I wanted to just go ahead and address them as one because my response will be the same. I'll be glad to answer any of the questions you may have.
What would be the appropriate motion on this?
To accept, you want this to accept my recommendation?
All three at once?
No, I would say we take them separately. I just wanted to, since my
Okay.
explanation was going to be the same, rather than repeat the same thing 3 times.
Okay, all right. Throw me off cadence.
Trying to. Sorry.
All right, is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the executive director on case number 2021R-453, which is the
So moved, Mr.
consolidated
Chair.
case?
Second.
Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Yeah, I was going to say, now with this microphone added, we're not hearing,
Oh, no.
I'm not here. I can hear him through that computer, but not in mine. And I don't think this is, let me double check here. There. Say that again, Mr. Kreitz?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
No, see, good.
Ooh, so quiet.
Yeah. I mean, the speaker's all the way up.
Okay, so, click on this little down arrow. Speaker. Yeah, so try one that's not the GoPro that you're hearing.
I mean, I can go back to this one, I guess.
There you go. So you still have this to speak on. Just says you're still speaking on that, but you're not.
But we're not using that as
Okay. Hopefully that's
as
the
a
case.
speaker.
It'll be interesting to hear what happens.
Understand.
Okay, well, we had a motion, as I recall, it was some consolidation.
Consolidation with case number 2022R-072, find a violation and impose a fine of $50.
Okay, and that was a motion made by Mr. Kreitz. Is there a second?
Second.
Yep.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? The motion carries 7-0. All right, the next case is case number 2021R-467, consolidated with case number 2022R-046, and find a violation and impose a fine of $50. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation?
I move to accept the recommendation of the executive director.
Second, Tavares.
Okay, we have a properly made motion and second. All favor signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, seeing no objections, the motion passes 7-0. Okay, the next case is case number 2021R-467. Consolidate the case with 2022R-4049. Find a violation and impose a fine of $50.
Was that case 2021R-468, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second. Or is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Being that there's been a motion and that's been properly seconded, and is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Seeing no objections, the motion carries. Okay, the next category of cases is, and the executive director's recommendation is to find a violation and impose a fine of $100. And that would be case number 2021R-450, case number 2021R-452, case number 2021R-474, case 2022R-001, case 2022R-012, Case 2022R-014. Mr. Richter, any comments here?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, these are all cases where the reports were filed by the respective individuals here, but no response was submitted to the commission on which I could make a different recommendation. Generally speaking, when I have those kind of cases, and they're all persons before the commission for the first time, or with priors that are beyond about a 5-year period. And so my recommendation is to find a violation and impose a fine of $100.
Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Given that there's been an appropriate motion and a second, and I see no further discussion on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Okay. Seeing no nay signs, the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
7-0.
Yep. I'm going to go ahead and interject on this next case is, I don't know, to me at least, kind of an interesting one. Case number 2021R-443, Thomas Beck. If you would all get the updated ICWs that I sent out yesterday, as it for all the cases. For this one, you'll see my recommendation is to find a violation, impose a $100 fine, and declare the committee terminated. With the updated ICWs, I included an ICW that I had circulated to commission members back in November as it related to case number 2021R-322 that involved Mr. Beck, where I synopsized his response in terms of him he's 81 years old, served on the school board for 38 years, and then went through the various things through which he was going at that time. So we acted on this particular case back in November. And if you look at the ICWs in general, you can see that we had, along with that case we were deciding, 4 other prior cases since 2018 involving Mr. Beck. And so I made the recommendation that we did. We consolidate all those cases and good cause, or consolidate it with another case and good cause them. Because he had filed his reports. He talked about working with the staff, and I was hoping the matter was done, over with, and resolved. Well, now he's back again, as you can see in this particular case. I had a long chat with the person at the Board of Elections at the Erie County Board who's been working with Mr. Beck, and what she informed me was that he's closed his campaign account, so he's at a zero balance, but he's having a hard time getting his final campaign finance report proper. I think she said it reflected a negative balance, so she's been working with him. And after I talked with her, I said to her, well, I'm thinking about, as I'm recommending here, declaring the committee terminated for his benefit more than anything else. And she said, well, I didn't know we could do that. And I said, well, we've done that on a fairly consistent basis. When somebody's out of balance, somebody can't get in a situation where they can get themselves resolved. And she's not sure when she's going to be able to get this case resolved, because she's reached out to him through email and other resources and not been able to get a resolution back from him.
I'm sorry, is he still on the school board?
No, he is off the school board, as I recall him saying, by the time his term ends. So I think I didn't run for re-election.
Is he in any other political office at this time?
No.
Mayor or
no
city council or anything?
No. According to the board, he is not. Go ahead, Ms. Hagan.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. If you were to move forward with that and terminate his committee, would he have any problems reestablishing it should he wish to further campaign?
He could, yes. But in my discussion with the person at the board, I told her if we did this, I'd let her know and ask her to reach out to him and say, please don't file any other designation of treasurers or try to run for anything else. Just enjoy your retirement or whatever it is he's going through.
And she thought that was a good idea. So that's kind of where we are. The other thing, I mean, I'm recommending the imposition of a $100 fine because you can see when we've imposed fines, he's paid them in the past. And having just found a good cause not to the last time, I feel like maybe we need to still get a lesson along, even if he is 81 years old. And my bleeding heart says we should be nice to this poor guy, but at the same point, it's like you've had enough problems over the last 4 years. Let's hope this resolves it. So that's my long-winded explanation of where I've come to on this case. I'll be glad to try and answer any other questions I can answer.
Any discussion about the executive director's recommendation? Hearing this explanation.
Look at you.
Is the ultimate recommendation to terminate the committee?
Yes.
And impose
after we find a violation and impose a fine, we would declare the committee terminated.
Okay, so it'd be a fine plus the termination of the committee.
Correct.
Okay.
And the board has indicated what he is, quote unquote, trying to terminate based on the last conversations they had with him, but it's also been a while since they had contact with him.
Is there a motion?
Move that we follow the recommendation of the executive director, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seeing no further discussion or questions on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Or raising your hand. Or raising your hand. Thank you.
Are there any nays? Okay, seeing none, the motion has passed.
Thank you all very much. I will talk with the board this afternoon.
Okay, the next category of cases involves the $25 a day fine with the reconsideration option. That would be case number 2021R-462, 2022R-006. Is there a motion?
I'll
move the recommendation of the executive director.
Second.
Okay. There's been a motion and that's been properly seconded. And no further discussion on that motion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next case, $25 per day with a reconsideration option with a payment of $250. That would be for case number 2021R-455. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we follow the recommendation of the executive director.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion that's been properly seconded. And then we have no further discussion on the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Nay. Okay. Commissioner Hagan's hand was going up so slow. I was like, oh, she's going to say nay? Okay, certainly you're right. Okay. All right, the next category of cases, or case, excuse me, involves the executive director's recommendation for $25,100 plus $100 a day with a reconsideration option. That is for case number 2021 R-456. Mr. Richter, any explanation here?
This is a committee that has had a number of prior violations. They are back again. The $25,100 represents the 251 days times $100 for the 251 days since the report was due for the semi-annual report from July 29, I think it was technically, of this past year. Hopefully it will get their attention eventually and they'll get themselves brought into compliance. But this is just another in a long line of cases in which this particular committee has not filed their campaign finance reports.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Any motion?
Maybe we follow the recommendation of the executive director.
Is there a second?
Mr. Lyle seconded.
Okay, there's been a motion that's been properly seconded. No further discussion on the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Seeing no opposition, the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
All right. Mr. Richter, any comments on the next section of cases involve continuations? Any comments regarding these, the first category?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I can go through them quickly. Ms. Gaddison has a case on the next agenda. We did not have good service on her this time. I don't know whether we'll be able to deal with her next time as well. I talked to the board briefly. They are as frustrated as I am with the number of times she's recently come to us. We'll see what happens at the next meeting. That'll probably be a continuance as well. Mr. King also has repeated violations. The board indicated they're currently working with him and hope to get him, they were hoping to get him resolved by today, but it didn't work. So hopefully that one will come back quickly. Mr. McTighe's law firm represents Mr. Upchurch. They are currently working on getting the reports filed with the secretary's office. And they too anticipate, hopefully even by the next meeting, getting that case back before us. And then all of the other matters on the last page are ones where we did not, aside from the ones that we dealt with today when they appeared, these are matters that for which we did not have good certified mail service or any other service. And so that being the case, we'll continue those to a later date and hopefully we'll get service on those persons. I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody may have. Oh, one other additional note, as it relates to Mr. Brinkman, who is a currently sitting state representative. He too, if you look at the ICW, has a rather checkered history before the commission. I had an unofficial conversation with Mr. Hartman earlier this week, who has indicated that he anticipates working with Mr. Brinkman to get his issues taken care of with the Secretary's office, which I strongly encouraged him to do, just because Mr. Brinkman has had his issues before the commission previously, and hopefully this will get him to take care of his outstanding issues, hopefully. Anyway, that's all I have.
Okay, as chair, I will.
Yep, you have the ability to go ahead and continue those matters.
I will continue
Mr.
those
Chair.
matters, which we just spoke of. Okay.
Mr. Chair, question?
Yes, please.
As a matter of formality, in order to make the record, should we not read the case numbers into the record?
You go ahead and read the case numbers.
Okay, certainly.
Or I could do it if you want me to.
Go ahead.
Okay. The cases that will be continued upon the action of the chair are case numbers 2021R-466, 2021R-470, 2021S-057, 2021R-454, 2021R-460, 2021R-461, 2021R-463, 2021R-469, 2021R-477, and 2021S-058. The other cases listed on the continued for service, 2021R-471, -473, and 2022R-005 were addressed previously by the commission when those persons appeared before the commission.
Thank you, sir.
I think since we met last, two other pieces of information for the commission. I was talking with Mr. Lyle earlier. We went probably for about 4 years without having any of our decisions appealed or otherwise have any involvement with the Attorney General's office. It was a nice quiet time before the commission. But in the last month, Mr. Bride did appeal the Freeman case, which Ms. Hangett and Mr. Lyle certainly wouldn't be aware of. And so that one is on appeal. I got the record submitted to the Franklin County Clerk Court's office, which we're required to do. Just as a little side note, normally when I put in the record to the commission, or to the court, I should say, it takes me maybe a page, maybe 2 pages of entries that you have to go through the court's electronic login and submission system. When I did the record for the Freeman case, it took me 17 different pages of submissions in order to submit that record to the court. So I'm about 7 or 8 times longer than I normally am in submitting that record on that particular case. And then just this week, we got an appeal of the Hubei case, which I was anticipating we would get because I was going back and forth with a particular attorney who asked me to supply him with a variety of information on other cases in which the commission found cases frivolous and imposed sanctions. The due date for that record to be submitted to the court is May 10th. I will get that done by that date. We're waiting on the transcripts at this point from the court reporter. And so that's the updated information I have. There is also one other thing I will say is we just got today another complaint against Mr. Blystone, Republican gubernatorial primary candidate. Mr. Hartman has indicated he will probably be representing the complainant there. And he has asked me at one point or another to expedite that case, informing me that the commission under its statutes has an obligation to expedite matters. What I indicated to him is that since the commission became an independent agency, there are statutes that put us in a situation where we may have to expedite matters, but that the commission made a policy decision early on that we were specifically obligated to expedite matters that involved false statements when the commission was dealing with false statements, and so we always expedited those. But I received a direction from the commission at that time not to expedite any other matters that came before the commission. So I've informed him that I don't anticipate expediting that case before the commission, and he has at least indicated that he will probably file a mandamus action against the commission in order to get us to do so. Which in my opinion would be interesting only because the likelihood of the court acting on his mandamus action prior to when we would normally put it before the commission, even if it wouldn't be before the primary election, which is what I presume he's looking for, puts it in a situation where it would probably be multiple months, if not a year or so, until the matter would be heard. So
what is the, Mr. Executive Director, I mean,
Sure.
What is for our own background here, and I don't want to be presumptuous that we would not expedite, what is the issue in this case? What is he even raising? I mean, and excuse me if that was given to us and I didn't read it. I apologize for
No,
that,
I just got it today, but in my conversations with him, what they have discovered is that Mr. Blystone I think in his annual campaign finance report that would have been submitted at the end of January for 2022, had a substantial amount of contributions that were not properly reflected. Supposedly what has occurred, and this is hearsay, because I haven't had a chance to read the complaint, but in my conversation, they quote unquote passed the hat at some sort of an event and collected somewhere in 5 figures at that event, but did not necessarily reflect all of what those expenditures or contributions were. And so I had another conversation about potentially some other expenditures. I don't know whether that was included in these complaints or not. That's what it apparently involves. Hopefully that helps.
It does help, and I would love to hear anyone else's opinion based on that, or we need to get any more information at this point before refraining from expediting.
Sure.
Because, we certainly don't want it to get out that, they don't expedite, and so we may do something that runs afoul with a certain type of timing that they would never address this, or address this after the election or something like that.
I have a day or two in which to make a specific declaration recommendation on that. I could circulate all those materials to everybody later today and ask for further input and identify the statutes that would be at issue if that issue is raised.
Okay, I've done all the talking. I'd like to hear from other commissioners.
Sure, Mr. Chairman and Executive Director, is there any precedent for hearing a case of this nature and expediting in this fashion?
Only in that, like I said, early on when the commission was established as an independent agency, the commission made the executive decision at that time, directed me not to have any other matter brought before the commission. And so that has been the policy of the commission since that time and to this date. I don't have a problem looking at it over and again and reassessing it if everybody wants to reassess where we're coming on that, but that's where that came from.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Phil, do we have any update from the General Assembly in connection with some of the revisions that you had an opportunity to meet with Representative Seitz on?
I do not know. At this point, I know it's been entered. I circulated that to everybody. Nobody else has reached out to me, and I will admit I also haven't reached out to anybody else either. So I do not have any kind of an update at this point.
Thank you.
And forgive me if I missed this, but where was that bill in the process with Representative Seitz?
It was just entered about 3 weeks ago, I think, or a month ago.
Okay, so it hasn't had any hearings yet necessarily.
Right. I would presume they're going to be set shortly, but Mr. Kreitz and I met with Mr. Seitz, what was that, back in October, I think, time frame. I went back and forth a little bit with Heather Blessing, who's counsel to the House Republicans, who was in that meeting with us, and also with the person with General Assembly would write it, and eventually they went back and forth a little bit on what it would include. Then the bill was entered. Like I said, I circulated to everybody, but that's where it stands as of this moment. Easy for me to say.
Thank you, Phil.
Okay, so back on the previous issue, what is the pleasure of the committee? You're going to look into this and give us an update, or does someone feel strongly that we just go with tradition and don't worry about it and don't expedite anything?
I personally have no motion one way or the other. I'd be interested to see the facts that have been presented to the executive director for our consideration.
I'll circulate everything this afternoon at some point. Don't know when, because I've got to read and go through what's been submitted, because it was handed to me right before we came up here. And so I haven't seen, like I said, I had conversation with Mr. Hartman, a couple weeks ago about this, and a couple of days ago on another issue. And he said he was going to be doing it, but, until I actually see something, it's often hard to specifically get into any details about where any of the stands. So let me, I will get PDFs made and circulate them to everybody along with the statutes at issue and any other recommendation I would have.
Thank you. Is there any other new business? Or yes, please. Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say it's great to be on board, and I look forward to working with you all and getting to know everybody. And I'd like to just take a second to thank Phil and Chris. Over the last month, they've been very accommodating and very patient with me, and I will underscore patient. So, gentlemen, I just want to thank you. So, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, I would simply echo that as well. We appreciate the opportunity to serve and be on board, and it seems like a very amiable group, and you're about getting things done efficiently, which we always appreciate.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other comments? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Okay, there's been a motion that's been properly seconded. Made and properly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
We are adjourned.
We are adjourned.
Have a good week, all.
Very much. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
I did want to say real quick that I will not be at the next meeting, and Commissioner Kaufman will be chairing. She's been advised. Cheat sheet out here.
Good job, Mr. Chair.
Oh man, this.